Mental Health Awareness Week 2022 is based around the topic of loneliness. Loneliness is very important for us here at iListen because we know that it can bring on worry and it can change our mood. And those two things are vital because it can turn into anxiety and depression if we're not addressing it early on. Early intervention and prevention is absolutely the way forward to manage our well-being when we find things difficult. There's important things that we can do to address this. If we talk about having the ability to talk to someone, then that can boost our self-esteem. It can bring on greater empathy, so when other people are struggling, that we can help them through a tricky time. And it allows us to regulate our emotions in a way that we don't exacerbate the situation, and we're more clear in our approach on how we're going to get out of a difficult time when times are tough. We also puts us in a position where we become more trusting with colleagues and family members, friends around us, and able to open up and talk about things that we might be finding difficult. We're going to look at a psychological model now based on Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We're going through a situation at the moment where our basic needs are a little bit under threat. The air that we breathe, the shelter that we're on, our ability to be able to pay our bills because of job security, and our own personal safety with all the different things that are happening with pandemic makes it really difficult for us to move up this pyramid to a sense of knowing where we are and how we can manage our well-being and having that sense of belonging. It's a long way off at the moment, being able to get the confidence and to be able to achieve tasks that come our way to allow us to get to the place of our full potential. But there's things that we can do to help ourselves along the way. What is friendship? Okay, a couple of quotes here. St. Thomas Aquinas said, "There's nothing more on this earth to be prized than true friendship. Friendships show their love in times of trouble, not happiness. And a true friendship is like sound health. The value is seldom known until it's lost." So there's some really important messages from those quotes. What they're saying there is that to get good friendship, to be able to break this cycle of loneliness, it takes a little bit of trial and error. We can put our trust into people and they can get let down on occasions. But true friendship is forged over time and testing, trusting people to be able to give a little bit of ourselves and for them to give a little bit of themselves so that we can support each other through tricky times. This is obviously something with a loved one, if we've got a partner, it becomes easier for us to manage because possibly that's the person that we always turn to. But if we find ourselves in a situation where we've lost a loved one and we suddenly feel alone, then it's no wonder that our sense of who we can talk to about different things becomes really difficult. Okay. "A friend to all is a friend to none" was Aristotle's quote on that one. And that's the idea of, well, we can't have friendships that are going to last with everyone. And we're friends with everyone, then we're not really getting true friendship because we haven't got that trust factor in place. So it's really important to find that individual who can make a huge difference in our life. Different things that we can come with a lack of friendship becomes apparent. Loneliness obviously being the number one on our list, and the reason that we're trying to address this today, depression and worry, as we said, they're absolutely magnified by a situation when we find ourselves in that we're not able to have someone to reach out to. It can also have a decline in our physical health, and it absolutely has a change in our behaviours. We can see anger coming out, frustration, and all of these different things when we find ourselves in a place of loneliness and not having someone to talk to about a situation. So they're things that we absolutely will experience in times like this. To get that true friendship, we need to have a look at the traits. There's 13 essential traits of friendship. Being trustworthy, being honest, with yourself and with others? How open can you be with someone when having a conversation? How dependable you are? It's great having friends, but if you pick up the phone, try to reach out and they don't answer, then it becomes really difficult to pick up the phone again for a second try. We're talking about loyalty to people you care about, being able to trust each other, and be able to express empathy. Empathy is vital, not sympathy. If you go with a sympathetic approach, what we normally find in that situation is that, we agree with everything they're saying, and it's not really what the person wants. Being empathetic is absolutely a more positive route that we're trying to go here. This is putting yourself in a situation. How would I feel if I was that person? How would I approach the situation? And if you've got ideas of how you would go it, then express that. Try and help somebody through a really tricky time. Being non-judgmental in your conversations with a person is great. If somebody is able to come to you and open up and really tell you what's going on with that person, with their life, then I think it's important to be able to give that person time and space to be able to open up and not sort of judge somebody, saying you're overreacting, for example. It's certainly not going to help that situation. Being able to be a good listener is really important as well. I'm sure that we've all been in situations where somebody has told us something and we're distracted by something else in the room. It's not fully going in. So to be able to give the time to actually listen, thinking about the environment that you're setting in, is vitally important as well. Being supportive for people in their good times is an easy thing to do. Being supportive of somebody when they're finding things difficult can absolutely be testing. So it's worth thinking. In the past, okay, how have I approached the situation? Have I had somebody that I can lean on, depend on? And do they come forward and talk to me? Have I given that person the time to be able to really open up and tell me what's going on for them? If you are doing that, brilliant. That's exactly what we want to get. And you can help somebody through a really, really tricky time. Self-confidence can take a knock when we're finding things difficult. If we're in a place of isolation, we can often have those thoughts ruminating around our heads, and our confidence can take a huge knock in that situation. So being able to reach out and help somebody, we need to be self-confident in our approach as well. We need to see humour. Humour is really important as well. When we're thinking about tricky situations that might go on, they can be quite negative at times. So bringing humour into the situation is absolutely something. It's fun to laugh, and actually it has a chemical reaction. We're giving ourselves a little bit of dopamine boost, which is going to help our well-being as well as the person that we're talking to as well. So make sure that you're fun to be around. Absolutely vital things we can do there. Connections through these tricky times can find it difficult. When we're faced at a time that we can feel very lonely, recognizing somebody that's there for us can be tricky. So if somebody reaches out, somebody rings you, sends you a message, then absolutely make sure that you connect with that person. It's easy to ignore it. It's easy to say, I'll deal with it later. But let's be honest, that never happens. We never really get the chance again. And if somebody's reaching out and we keep saying no, then it's often that they're going to die away. We're not going to have that connection. So we absolutely want to be able to say, okay, I want to be proactive in my approach. I recognize that possibly my mood has been affected. I'm starting to worry about situations that seem a little bit out of the norm. We're looking for friendships, of course, that have lasted the test of time. That's usually where we get the most trusting conversations. So absolutely look around your friendship group. We normally have a good friendship group of around about 5 people. More than that, then we separate into different friendship groups, but 5 people who are close to us can be really important. And when we're faced with a situation, maybe something's going through our mind that we can't talk to one person about, always think who else you can reach out to. And if it's not a friend that you've got close to you that you're able to open up and talk to, reach out to family members. They're absolutely got your back. They've been there with you thick and thin throughout the years. They've stood by you the whole way, and equally you've seen them through tricky times as well. So absolutely worth reaching out to somebody who you find that you've got an equal footing with. Obviously, things that go through our mind when we're finding ourselves in a place of being lonely is the fear of being abandoned. If we feel that nobody's there to reach out for us, nobody's trekking in on us, then we can absolutely feel that we're all on our own and there's no way forward. Let's be proactive in our approach, as mentioned. Let's reach out to them. If we're finding it difficult ourselves, the hardest thing is to pick up the phone, but absolutely the most crucial thing we can do, because it's starting the conversation. The lack of understanding from other people, well, that's what will go through our minds. When we're thinking about a situation, there's a great model called The Social Phobia by Clark and Wells. And what that is all around about is identifying a situation. Say if it's putting you off picking up the telephone. What's putting you off? Is it the thought processes that you're going to be left alone? If you feel that you're going to be abandoned, is it feel that people aren't going to understand your situation? Now, what happens with this model is we take that first process and then we overestimate the danger or the threat that comes with it, or our perceived inability to be able to cope with the situation. And that starts that worry process. It brings on anxiety symptoms where we have concerns about what other people may think, their self-focus, and we misinterpret what's going on in other people's minds. Never mind our own. We're thinking about what other people are going to think about our situation. And therefore our behaviors will change. We'll become more self-protective, which usually exacerbates that sense of isolation and loneliness. So we're doing things worse. We're making things worse for ourselves. But it's a natural process that we will go when we feel a little bit abandoned. And of course, that would often lead for us hiding away even more, not sharing our worries and our concerns with others. What does that do? Well, it brings on our flight, freeze response, which triggers our sympathetic nervous system and releases quite a lot of chemicals into our system. Adrenaline, we bring on cortisol, norepinephrine as well. These type of things have a play in our mind. And as you can imagine, with adrenaline, it speeds up our heart rates. They make us sweat and tremble, get ready for that danger or the perceived danger that's coming our way. And has a lasting effect as it gives us a chemical imbalance in our brain. So all from one thought process, we can trigger this response. And the more we do it, the more damaging it can be with our well-being. Now, at the very bottom of this model, there's two ways that this can go. We can avoid the situation as well. So if we're having a worry about this telephone conversation and the overestimated danger or the threat that we're going to get, that somebody's not going to be able to understand what we're going through, then the tendency is we avoid doing it. Or this process of thought goes through our minds more and more and more. And the more that this cycle continues, the more chemical response we're going to have to it, and the dangers do not go away, of course. Now, of course, there are ways around it, and the best thing that a psychologist or a counsellor would recommend is absolutely pick up the phone, face your fears, let's see what happens. Now, you don't have to download all the information at once. You don't have to tell everybody all the things that are going in your mind. It might be just picking up the telephone, reaching out to the person and saying, hey, I haven't had a catch up for a while. Tell me a little bit about you, what's been going on, and start the conversation small. And that will lead into it, making it easy to pick up the telephone the next time and the time after and the time after. And of course, the hope is you get to a point where your fears and your threats are absolutely washed away a little bit, and you're able to talk about the things that are going on in your life. It's really tricky, but it's most important to put one foot in front of the other. Take things slowly and in your own time. absolutely things that we can do when we're finding out things. We need to challenge ourselves. We need to look for small tasks and long tasks as well. So think about the goals that you're setting for yourself. If we're finding things really tricky, we're finding our emotional well-being being affected with loneliness, then set a long-term plan. What do I want to do by this time next year? That's fine. That's a year's time to get there. So you've got plenty of time to address the different thing that comes our way. But also give yourself small achievable tasks along the way. And it might be something like, well, I'm going to get out of the house more. I'm going to give myself a challenge to do something a little bit different to help myself. Looking at different ways and how that can be achievable. So workplaces, for example, I know many of us could be working from home still, but the things that we can do about it is look to see what our social committees are doing. Is there something on that I can engage with that will give myself a little bit of a boost to be able to reach out, have that social connection, and start to redress some of this chemical imbalance that we're getting from our fight, fright, freeze response? And there's many ways that our companies can help by doing these social events. It might be a charitable event that's being run by your organisation. It might be engaging with something like Beach Buddies. I love Beach Buddies because it's not addressed as a mental health activity, but actually what you do by volunteering, going out and helping a beach clean, is you're outside, you're getting fresh air, you're giving yourself a boost of serotonin, you're boosting those endorphins as well from doing the walking, a little bit of exercise, and you're never alone. You can be alone to start off with if you want to. Take things in your pace, which is really important. But there's always somebody that you can meet up with and have a small chit chat with. And it doesn't have to be about feelings and emotions. You don't have to talk about everything that's going on for you. What you can do is just start giving yourself a permission to talk about other things, giving your mind a break so that social anxiety cycle is given a little bit of a break. You're able to concentrate on other things. And it could be anything. You could talk about how dirty the beach is and how much progress you're making. Giving yourself an achievable task is really important. And giving yourself a break about everything that's going on is really important as well. Alongside volunteering things and work things that we can connect with other people for, obviously there's many things that are available to us as well. Faith groups are super important as well. There's a real community feel around going to a church on a Sunday. And you might start off, as we mentioned, just stepping in the front door and not really participating, but listening to what's going on with the service. And then when you're ready in your own comfort zone, possibly stay a little bit after, have a cup of tea with everyone, share that conversation, and give yourself permission to be able to be a little bit vulnerable, but also give yourself a challenge that's achievable, that you're able to help yourself through a tricky time. So faith groups, we know, are really important for people. And in a time of when we're feeling lonely and a little bit overwhelmed with the situation we're in, they're absolutely really powerful ways to be able to connect with people who you'll find will be really supportive no matter what you're going through. There's social media. Social media is an amazing way to reach out and connect with people. Whether it's people that you haven't seen for years, whether it's somebody that you see every single day, social media allows you the time to be able to, share a little bit about yourself that you possibly might find difficult talking about. By sending a message via Messenger or whatever application that you have, you're able to put something down, which is actually quite cathartic. Journaling is absolutely a really powerful tool that we use in therapy and counselling, a way of writing down what your thoughts and concerns are. And if you're able to get yourself in a place that you can share that with people, then you've absolutely taken a huge stride to be able to break the barriers that you might be feeling with that anxiety cycle that's going on. Even walking to the local park, taking the dog out for a walk, you always get the opportunity to talk to somebody So really simple ways that we can introduce that we can help each other. Gardening groups are really important as well. Again, giving ourselves permission to be able to stretch out of our comfort zone in our own time. Talking to somebody in one of the local garden centres that we have on the Isle of Man about anything. What's the best way to grow a certain plant, or what's your advice? What you're getting there is some social interaction, and they might be able to put you in the right direction to join a group via Facebook or a different media where people have the same interests. And there it makes it a little bit easier to be able to give yourself permission to talk about many different things that you might be faced with, but also permission to switch off from things that might be racing through your mind, concentrate on the here and now, not things that might happen in the future or things that have happened in the past. Grounding is super, super important, and great ways that we can do that is also by using things like a gym or yoga class or mindfulness classes that might be on. They do some amazing courses up at the Isle of Man College that I can highly recommend, from ballroom dancing to gardening techniques that we mentioned, art and craft, all these ways where we can use a nice knowledge that we might have had or a passion that we might have been engaged with when we were younger, reconnecting and allowing ourselves to build new friendships if we find ourselves lonely. Really important ways that we can do that. There's other ways, of course, that we can help ourselves through professional networking groups. Again, this is this type of thing that we might not be ready for straight away, and it might take time to be able to reach out and talk to somebody who can help us along in our career, give us a stretch and challenge, but also find out a little bit about somebody else, what they're going through, how they're finding different situations that they've been faced with. I think it's important to know that we're not alone in how we're feeling. Mental health is absolutely huge on the agenda, not just on the Isle of Man, but all around the world, of course. However, the first steps that we can make to help ourselves along the way is being able to identify somebody who can reach out and talk to about a situation. For many generations, video games or online games are a great source of connecting with people as well. I'm a Scrabble fan, so I use Words with Friends. And Words with Friends is great because it's giving myself a challenge. I have to think of new ideas, new Scrabble words to come up with, and also a little bit of competitive nature going on there. It's given me permission to switch off from my thought processes that might be going on. But also there's chat functions on many of these games now, and be able to talk to somebody all the way around the world. In fact, I talk to people in Australia, New Zealand, America, and all sorts just through an online application. And it's really interesting to hear other people's stories and what they're going through as well. It's really enlightening to find out that no matter where we are in the world, the things that we're going through become, and certainly with the pandemic impacting that as well, that isolation is high on the agenda everywhere. And loneliness is definitely something that we're seeing a rise on as well. But let's use what's around us to be able to help us through a really tricky situation. Give ourselves a little bit of purpose. Build those connections with different people. Very important to prepare and plan as well. If we're going to be successful of any of these things that we're suggesting, then having a plan in place is super important. And it doesn't have to be a huge thing. It doesn't have to be a huge checklist that we're going through. Have I done this? Have I done that? But having an idea, okay, I'm finding it difficult. First of all, identifying that you're struggling. And then thinking about which ways is going to be more beneficial for you. We're all very individual and we all respond in different ways. But I absolutely guarantee that you're not alone out there. And if you're finding things really tricky, please do try and check in.